Okay, this is Ram here,
Hi, Ram.
and yeah, and we are now live on Hangout. So there are many people who are watching you live on YouTube as well, and the recording will be
Thanks.
available for later. So to just give you a summary of what we have done till now, we had this event called VR Camp Hyderabad, and
Hmm.
we have around 40 to 50 participants here. We
That's
did
pretty good.
some sessions on basics of virtual reality, web VR, and Airframe. They
Hmm.
have also developed few cool apps using web VR and Airframe. They were able to develop few things with the help of animation and gazing and things like that.
Excellent. I
So
like that.
now you can proceed further and give them more idea about whatever things you have done and from your experience. So
Excellent. Sounds good. Cool. Well, then, if you guys are ready, I'll get started and I'll start doing my ranting. So, I'm going to do a screen share and hopefully it works very well and there'll be no issues or dramas. There we go.
screen is now shared.
Excellent. Cool. So, you guys should be able to see that. It says a story. And I was going to start all of this by telling you all a very, very, very short story, which will link together with what I'm going to say throughout. But basically, I started a long time ago in the world of emerging technology by building or buying this device from, I think it was Kickstarter at the time. And it's called NinjaBlocks. And what it was a home automation hub. So for the Internet of Things, connecting, say, your lights and your toaster or whatever you wanted to over the internet, and you could kind of trigger things on and off. You could turn PowerPoints on and off, and that was really cool. But I bought this and then literally had it under my desk in my office for a year, maybe longer, before I even touched it at all. I had all this possibility and just didn't use it, right? And then other people in my office and other people I knew had bought things like this, the Raspberry Pi, or other random devices out there, and they just never touched them. Or they tried them once, and then they gave up and kind of moved on with life, which was a shame. And that's why I put together a website called DevDiner. And this isn't really an advertisement for DevDiner. It's just kind of leading on to the story, was that I put together DevDiner because I wanted it to be a lot easier for developers like you guys to get into emerging technology and then stick with it for a little bit longer, to not be, I guess, scared away by it being too difficult or too hard, or you get stuck and you don't know where to turn. And I find that's a lot of kind of developers out there. Sometimes you lose motivation. You don't really want to go off and do more development and stuff when it starts to get too difficult or hard, or you get lost. So my first point through all this talk is, please don't let this end up in your drawer or under your desk at work or in your closet. This thing here or similar devices that you've got that you've just spent all this time over the past several hours. You're all now very tired and energetic still, I'm told, which is good. But you have devices like this Google Cardboard where you can build VR stuff now. And this is sort of like the modern day, I guess, for the new wave of VR possibilities, version of, say, my NinjaBlocks. And I don't want you guys to be falling into that trap, I guess, of you've tried it once, you do a bit of development, and then you go home and you don't touch it again. So please make sure that you make a deal with yourself. And I'm going to give you reasons why you should keep doing this too. But there are other versions of this as well. This is the Google Daydream View headset that was announced. It's not really out for many people yet. I think one person got sent it accidentally, which is pretty cool. And that kind of looks like this. It's very similar to the Google Cardboard that you guys already have, but also has a controller, and it's a little bit more advanced of a system. And so you guys, with some of the knowledge you've already used in WebVR, will likely be able to adapt that to this system here. But you'll also be able to adapt it to systems like the Gear VR, which a lot of people have if they bought a Samsung phone In a lot of countries around the world, if you bought a Samsung phone, you got the Gear VR for free, which was pretty cool. I personally bought a Samsung phone pretty much specifically because I wanted a Gear VR, as there are a lot of experiences on Gear VR that are already available. You got the Oculus Rift. If you go out and buy one, or if somebody you know has one, take advantage of that. You can use WebVR to build things for the Oculus Rift. You can use it to build for the Vive, which is my personal favorite VR headset. It's my favorite because you can do things like room scale, where you can walk around the room. I don't know how many of you have tried it or not tried it. Chances are you've possibly heard about it by now because you're into VR a little bit more than the regular people. But this is really cool, and you can definitely do WebVR stuff for the HTC Vive as well. So if you've got one, if you know somebody who has one, take the opportunity, start using the skills that you guys have already just started working on. There's the PlayStation VR. Don't know whether it supports WebVR just yet, but chances are soon enough it will. So keep that in mind. Soon enough, there's going to be a lot of people out there with Sony PlayStation consoles who go out and buy this device as an easier way to get into VR. So you've got that there. And then there are really obscure ones that a lot of people haven't heard of, like the OS VR. This is open source virtual reality headset. Not as many people have this, but if you're really interested in the hardware side of things, of being able to upgrade your headset over time and really have something that's completely open source for you to play with, it could be a good option. If you want to find out more, it's at osvr.org. I don't have one, so I don't know quite what they're like, but I've heard good things. But it is a lot more rare for people to have this one. Most people don't know this one. I usually throw it in just as an example of one which I find hilarious, and also one which proves that VR is moving really quickly, and there are going to be so many people building VR headsets in every kind of continent of the world. This one, I think, is in one of the Asian countries. I think it was either China or Japan. It's called the Dlodlo, and I have no idea how it works, but it looks a little bit more like regular glasses, and they're marketing it more as another kind of Google Cardboard equivalent. You plug it into your phone rather than sticking your phone inside it. But chances are, once again, your WebVR stuff will work with stuff like this. And in India, you guys probably have another VR headset manufacturer or a few who are all building stuff. You can go in, contact them, get in touch with them, because people who are making these headsets want developers to be building stuff for their platforms. As an example of how far this is going to go, this here is a Qualcomm reference platform. And what that means is Qualcomm is one of the big phone manufacturers worldwide, and they make tons and tons of smartphones for everybody. People take their designs for those smartphones, and then they change them around a little bit, put their own branding on them, and they manufacture them. So Qualcomm sees that VR is going to be a big thing, and so they've got a reference design now for how any other smartphone manufacturer out there, or anybody in general who wants to make VR headsets, can take this and turn it into a commercial product where they can sell their own VR headsets. So this is going to keep spreading for quite a while. So what's possible with WebVR? I like to show this example. Now let's see whether you can hear it. I don't know if you guys have seen this before.
Hey. Okay, time to get small. Wow, get small. I am Daniel.
I am Sam. Sam I am.
That's Sam I am. That's Sam I am. I do not like that Sam I am.
Do you like green eggs and ham?
I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham.
Would you like them here or there?
I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam I am.
Cool. And so this sort of thing, and some of you might have seen it throughout because it's another WebVR example that goes around a bit, is that anybody installing any apps, anybody can go in, open up their web browser, go to that URL, and theoretically, they could play around with that prototype. And so that's the sort of thing where now that you've got some of the basics from what I hear of using A-Frame, you can get into WebVR and do a ton of cool stuff that involves more collaboration and, I guess, bring other people into your experiences as well, if you're interested. So the next thing that I hear a lot of after people have done a bit of VR development is you're really excited about it, but you're worried whether it's going to last. You know, are people really going to stick with VR? Is it going to be just a fad that's going to fade away? Funnily enough, it's something that a lot of developers say, but a lot of people who aren't in the VR industry specifically, but are in, I guess, more corporate prediction areas, consultants, people who are looking at trends, they think that it is going to last. And so one of the things I like to point out is a few wonderful quotes. This is from the New York Times in 1985, who said that people don't want to lug a computer with them to the beach or on a train to while away hours they would rather spend reading the sports or business section of the newspaper. And somehow the microcomputer industry has assumed that everyone would love to have a keyboard grafted on as an extension of their fingers, and it just is not so. And clearly, that is far from the truth. This guy, Clifford, he said in 1995 that the truth is no online database will replace your daily newspaper, no CD-ROM can take the place of a competent teacher, and no computer network will change the way government works. Yet, Nicholas Negroponte, director of the MIT Media Lab, predicts that we'll soon buy books and newspapers straight over the internet. Sure. And clearly, not 100% right there. This guy, Joseph, was the president of the United Artists, involved quite heavily in entertainment, and he said, I don't think people will want talking pictures long. To continue along, people who are in the industry, so Mary Astor and a bunch of her colleagues, they were all actors and actresses, thought that the noise from moving pictures would simply drive audiences from the theaters, that people won't stay there and actually do this. This guy went a step further than that. Darrell, who worked at 20th Century Fox, pretty big, said in 1946 that television won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after the first 6 months because people will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night. And that clearly was very, very far from the truth. So my personal favorite quote of VR at the moment is that when virtual reality gets cheaper than dating, society is doomed. And I think maybe society isn't doomed, but there is going to be huge shifts in society as a whole from VR. And that's a cool thing. So what I want you guys to be able to tell people, if they're not quite sure if VR is a thing yet, is to think about something that Morgan Housel, he wrote for Time Magazine last year about how people respond to life-changing inventions. And so if you've got any doubts yet about where it's going to go, here's kind of where, on the scale of things, technology tends to lie. It starts with, I've never heard of it, which everything has to start in that way. Then it goes to, I've heard of it, but I don't understand it. So some people are at that stage with VR, the really, really early stage. The next step is, I understand it, but I don't see how it's useful. There are a lot more people in VR who don't really see the benefit of it. So some people are still at that level. The fourth step is, I see how it could be fun for rich people, but not me. That is where a lot of the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive platforms are at the moment. A lot of people say, oh, that would be great, but I can't afford it. So VR is not going to be that exciting for me. Rich people can enjoy that instead. You guys know that's not the case. You guys know that you can get Google Cardboard headsets and stuff for relatively cheap and be able to get into the space. So you guys, hopefully, are a step beyond that. You could be at this stage, which I think a lot of you might be, of I use it, but it's just a toy, that you don't see how you can take it further yet. You see it as, this is fun, this is quite cool, I can build little examples and demos, but for me still, it's just a toy. And that's okay. That's quite fine. But hopefully, over time, you'll hit at least up to here, where you see it's becoming more useful for me. And this is when you find ways that you can use this to build applications for clients, or you can build a VR experience which actually has real world benefit. And there are plenty of places where VR is going to have real world benefit where it'll actually make an impact. So think about those. Everybody's going to have their own area that's going to be impacting society in some way or another. You've got your own expertise. Everybody in this room and watching on YouTube, you guys all have your own individual interests and hobbies and stuff, and you know certain things more than others do. It might not even be technical. It could be a completely different realm altogether. You could be really into cycling or cooking or traveling in some random locations around the world or things like that. And there'd be ways where you can use VR to show people those experiences or teach people more about your industry or show something or benefit others who are also interested in that stuff. So there are plenty of potential there. And the more you guys do that, the more it'll feed into these steps, because then when you release something that is useful for society that's built in VR, it helps them reach these steps too, because then they see that there are useful things that they can use VR for because you built this useful app that they would now want to use and actually get a VR headset because of it. Step 7 is where we start to get really involved with this tech, and I use it all the time. So things like the internet, they've already passed these steps by far. Step 8, I could not imagine life without it. Internet's definitely there for a lot of people. Smartphones is also there for a lot of people. And then the final one is, seriously, people lived without it. Once you've hit that level, maybe VR will hit that level, maybe it won't. That's when it's entrenched. It is part of society's way of life, and they stick with it. VR might not get all the way, but it's a good thing to keep in mind when people think that VR is not going to get anywhere at all, to say, well, it could be at one point in these steps. And that's a cool, simple thing. It'll be different for different people. There are still people out there who are not using smartphones every day, who aren't using the internet every day, who might not even be using telephones every day just because that's not part of their day-to-day life. And that's fine too. And VR will be similar. Not everybody's going to use it. It's not going to be a worldwide thing where you can't survive without VR. But there are going to be people in the end who may end up at step 9 and think, how did I live without VR? So one of the areas where I think it's most exciting for VR is the HTC Vive. And Dave Smith from Business Insider 2015 said, I just tried the HTC's virtual reality headset Vive, and I'm certain we're on the precipice of a major change in computing. This is going to change the world as we know it, really. And this is something that comes from the tech journalism industry, which is typically quite, I guess, hesitant to say this sort of level of this is really life-changing and great. A lot of the time, the tech industry are a bit more hesitant to think things are going to be gimmicks. But the Vive actually started changing perception of VR a lot more than, say, Google Cardboard has. So a lot of people you meet might have tried a Google Cardboard, and you guys know it's exciting, it's quite cool. But if you try the Vive, there's so much more potential there, and that's where the industry's going. And that has led to plenty of very similar articles around the web on how great HTC Vive is taking things. And Oculus is also heading down the same path. It's going to continue things along. Everybody's going to be working in VR and making it better and better, and it may end up helping VR hit point 9, where we'll all wonder, how did we live without this incredible technology that is changing everything? Luckily, New York Times are a little bit more hopeful as well for VR. They say, I in no way think that VR is going to be like 3D TV. It's already too far along, and you'll see so much investment from all of the major players. And this is 100% true. Just the first half of 2016 alone saw $1.3 billion invested in VR. That is so much money. So with all of this being poured into VR, and so many people like you guys getting into it, trying things, experimenting, we're helping the industry grow. This report, who also said about the massive amount of spending in the space, said that it's expected that 24 months from now, we'll have a much better understanding of the 4 or 5 key use cases around how and why consumers will use VR versus what they do on their phones, iPads, TVs, and everything else. And the reason I put this quote in is actually quite important. We don't quite know yet what VR is going to be great at. We don't know for sure what everybody is going to take up and use like crazy for VR. Just like augmented reality, when Pokemon Go came out, nobody would have foreseen that to get augmented reality to a point where more people at least understand what it is was going to take Pokemon and Nintendo property getting out there and people going around the world trying to capture Pokemon with their smartphone. That wasn't foreseen, but now we've seen that that was at least a nice bridging gap between no idea what augmented reality was to now some idea. VR is going to be similar. For it to get to the point where everybody thinks, how did I live without it? We'll need to know a bit more about what do people find VR really useful for and what isn't it so good at. It doesn't have to replace everything. It doesn't have to replace phones or iPads or TVs. They can all kind of live simultaneously. You can have more than one thing. VR will just have its things that it's really good at. And that's what you guys are empowered to be able to work out. You guys are the ones who get to go and build things, try stuff, see what works and what doesn't work. Don't hold back and think, oh, this might not work. Try something. If you've got any random idea in your mind, try it because you've no idea what will actually work and not work until you give it a go. Okay, if that was too much text, I think we should take a break. So, for those who don't know, that man there is Palmer Luckey. He is the one who started the Oculus and a lot of the VR movement. And he is a major player at the moment in the space. Without him, VR might not be anywhere near as far along. But even he is in this place wearing the competitor's headset. He's wearing a HTC Vive. And he is terrified out of his mind. And I mainly show this because I find it entertaining. But I also find it's a great example of how immersive VR can be, that somebody who is in VR all of the time, building for it, developing for it, evangelizing for it, and telling people how good it is, even he is being so strongly impacted by the technology still to this day and new experiences. So it's exciting. Okay, so virtual reality. It's still being worked out, and that's fine. That is an opportunity for you guys, not a disadvantage. So the second point I want you guys to take from this talk is that you can help shape VR. This is in your hands as people who are in the industry who are trying stuff, developing for it, experimenting. You can do it. Not only that, but you guys need to be the ones who are getting out there. You need to be blogging. You need to be writing stuff. Please don't make your knowledge and the things you learn a insular thing. Please don't keep them to yourself because they're going to help others. One of the things that a lot of tech people don't realize, and it depends on the cultures. I'm not sure what India's culture is quite like, but in Australia, it is, and that's where I am, Australia, far away, but in Australia, it's a very different thing. It's not normal for people to get out there and share what they've learned. A lot of the time, there's a big gap between learning something and then feeling confident enough to share it with others. A lot of people in Australia, and I think around the world, I think England is also very similar. The culture isn't one of blindly going out and sharing what you've learned to help others. It's more feeling confident first that you're an expert in something before you try and share what you've learned. And in VR, you have to remember there are no experts yet. VR is still new. We still don't know how this all works quite yet. What is good, what is bad. So you could build an incredible web VR experience using A-Frame and come up with this great way of doing a menu, or come up with a great way of showing text that is actually more readable and understandable for people. You could create all number of things, right? And if you go out there and you blog about it, you write about it, you tell people, that could shape the entire VR industry. People could see what you've done and then use it themselves to make their own VR experiences better. You could be the one who comes up with the common user experience for, say, imagine the web without hyperlinks, right? Imagine the web without Gmail and being able to do what we now do every day on the internet. All those little things, right, which people just put out there. Hypertext and links were pretty common with just the start of the web. But say Gmail, if they didn't go out there and just experiment, throw it out there and explain their concepts of why they did things the way they did, and they were the only ones who ever made, say, a web page be able to update with information without refreshing, the web would be so far behind. So get out there as well, share your knowledge, share what you learn, even if you don't think it's that exciting. Share your experience. Talk about in your blog or anything you've written. YouTube even, if you guys are cool with YouTube and vlogging, screencasting your stuff, just tell people what you're doing because you never know, you might help somebody. Ask questions. If you don't know something, don't hesitate to ask people stuff. VR and the industry in general is really happy at sharing knowledge. They do those things, the blogging and the talking about what they've done, because they know that we need to share stuff around. We need to help each other build VR to be what it is destined to be. So ask questions, don't be shy. Share your thoughts and guidance with others on things like Slack. There is a Slack channel. If anybody knows Slack, it's a great chat platform. There are channels that are devoted to WebVR and A-Frame, where you can get on there and you can ask questions on Slack. You can help people on Slack. You can be there, and if somebody asks a question that you already know the answer to, you can give them quick guidance and say, hey, I've done this before. This is how to do so-and-so. There are forums, Stack Overflow. There are also other areas where you can go out there and help people who are trying to find help. So this is me trying to help you guys work out how to be engaging and sharing your VR experience with others. You want to be out there telling people about VR and helping spread the VR world around. If you can see, up the top there is my Twitter handle, @thatpatrickguy. If you're on Twitter and you need help, questions, even if they sound really stupid, feel free. Even direct message me. My direct messages are open for anybody to message me. So get in touch. And yeah, so how can you find out all about A-Frame and WebVR more? How do you keep up with all of this stuff? My site, DevDiner, in particular, if anybody's looking, has a section called Guides, which has a whole heap of links for how to build virtual reality stuff for the web using JavaScript. So if you're wanting to do more stuff that goes a bit more above and beyond what you've done today, or if you're looking for links for things so things like the Slack channel where you can go and talk to people about this stuff, go to my guides page if you need help and click on the Building Virtual Reality for the Web using JavaScript. Also, if you find any really useful information out there about virtual reality and making stuff with JavaScript, feel free to send it my way so it can help other people as well. This is hopefully a community thing, right, where you guys can help others by sharing what you found. Try to not keep it to yourself. A year ago, WebVR was really primitive. I put together simple things that didn't even use A-Frame or all of this stuff. It used just really hardcore JavaScript and Three.js. If you guys are looking for demos to try out later, because I think I'm already kind of going close to time. So take down these URLs. I'll distribute them later too. I might post it on your Facebook group for the event, Facebook page, or on the meetup group that I saw you guys have. But this was a really old one that may not work on all devices because this is at least, I think, 2 years old now. But this was a thing where it pulled in weather data for different cities. It would put the name of the city, and then there were globes that floated around the user. And they changed their direction and their speed depending on the wind direction and speed of the wind in that location. And the color of the glow things changed depending on the weather. So if it was nice and clear, so in this screenshot here, it's clear in Tokyo. So the glowy things were all nice and clear and blue. If it was rainy, it was more of a gray look. And it changed like that. And that was just a kind of guide for something that you guys can think of is WebVR is great because it is out there on the web, and you can pull in other web data. You can pull in APIs. You can pull in data from all sorts of sources and create new experiences, mix them together, and see what happens. I put together this visualization, you'll see it's very hard to tell. But what this was a whole bunch of light towers. Basically, the dots that are there on screen would shoot up depending on how long a tweet was about a certain topic. And they just randomly would appear, and there would be all sorts of lengths looking for a specific Twitter keyword. So this is one that represents pizza. Pizza I found was really good because it is something which people don't tweet about too much, but they tweet about it pretty frequently that you at least see it quickly. Another thing that people tweet about too much was Justin Bieber. So that too much, it crashed the browser because there were just too many things popping up like crazy. And I decided, bad idea. In 2016, you guys have already seen all of this stuff now. There's WebVR. You've got Firefox Nightly supporting this stuff. You've got Samsung's Gear VR browser that's also supporting this stuff now. Coming soon, Oculus has also got their own browser, which may have been mentioned earlier. So all this stuff exists where you can get involved today. This here is another example of something you can get into. Oh, no, that's the wrong link. What it is Google VR has VR views. If you've got anybody who's too scared to use A-Frame, but they've got a 360 image that they want to put into the web, direct them to VR View. Check that out because it's actually really handy and really quick to use. This is an example that I built. If you're looking for an example of VR views, I've got a whole guide on how to put together VR views. I took a photo. Well, I didn't take a photo. I got somebody else to take a photo of the SitePoint office. It's another website that I write for. And you can view it in 360. And so I've got a step-by-step guide on how to do that if anybody's keen. You've all seen A-Frame now. That is the one place that you should definitely direct people who are trying to learn this stuff. As you guys have noticed, it's pretty easy to get into. You may have seen A-Painter. If you haven't, guys, check out A-Painter. It uses A-Frame, but you get to draw in virtual reality if you've got a Vive. Another one to check out is Primrose. Primrose VR. This is really cool for having, say, conferences, like online meetings and stuff with people. In VR, you can code within VR. So code your environment around you just in the browser. Now, I'm going to show a few live demos, and then you guys are going to be able to ask questions. So here, let's go to, where did it go? This one could be it. There we go. So if I make this bigger, this here is a really crude example of an A-Frame example that I put together. What it is it pulls in data from meetup.com, which some of you know of because your event also had a meetup that I found. And it shows chairs here that are the occupied available spots for the meetup group. And then these chairs here are the ones which haven't been taken up yet. They're still yet to be RSVP'd, but they're available spots for the meetup. And this is just a really basic example I threw together to show pulling in data from the web, so APIs that are openly available. Meetup.com has an API, application programming interface, where it's basically saying you can plug into to get their data. So data about the meetups that they know about, and show it in new ways. And so you could show that in pretty much any way you wanted to using A-Frame. And this is my example of how I showed it. So as an example, this is your meetup group based on how many people kind of joined your meetup group. I don't think everybody RSVP'd in your meetup group, so that's why it's quite small. And it didn't really have an RSVP group. But that's an example of kind of how it scales based on what you've got. Openly available, it works with any event when I throw in the event's name and group, sorry, the event group and event ID. And so that's stuff that you can do, all using JavaScript. Another fun example I like to show people is one that I put together for the YAO Connected conference a few weeks ago. I think it was last week. This one is all using A-Frame as well. And what it does is it pulls in images and colors from a web page using JavaScript and Node.js, which is a JavaScript server language, I guess framework more than a language. And so this is pulling in images from my website, and colors from my website. So if we go to my website, that's what it looks like here. And so it's pulled in the yellowy colors here, and it's pulled in these images without me having to tell it specifically what to pull in. And it works with any website out there. So this is a website for my fiancée, Mary. She is a singer. She performs at a whole range of places. And this is her gallery page where I just linked it into here. So I put the URL in here. It says maryamber.com/gallery. It's pulled in the images from her website. And it's also pulled in the colors. So the main colors were, there was a lot of black, and there was a bit of ambery yellow. And these are all the images that it just found and pulled into this experience. And this all runs using A-Frame, which is exciting because it also means that were I to put this on the web, which I might do at some point, it's not openly available yet, but if people are interested, I may put it up for other people to explore. It is quite cool. So another thing that I put together, which is a little bit more real-world use case, this is an actual thing that exists, and you can see it at flagshipteaser.be. And what it is, I can choose my language. Let's get it to, there we go. And it is also built in A-Frame. It's a flagship bank office. I think it's like a bank building in Brussels, where they wanted to showcase their bank. And so it's just 360 images of their bank, but it has 2 levels. So to go up to the next level, I built these little portals, which you can hover over, and it'll take you into here. And I think you guys did some gaze events today from what I've heard. So this uses the same concept, all using A-Frame, but it's out there, and they give out Google Cardboard headsets to their customers, and they can experience this on all sorts of smartphones and devices. And so it is something which can be used in the real world already today. What you just learned can be used now. You can build things for people that can actually be very valuable. And a final thing that I really like is Tumblr VR. What this does is it takes a Tumblr and pulls in the images from that. I didn't build this one. This is just one of my personal favorites in how nicely it was put together. It looks quite good with the models and stuff around. And it just places images from the Tumblr into your scene. And that just, you pull it, you type in the Tumblr username, and it'll just do that for you. And that's really cool. So with that as examples, one I'd also wanted to show, which actually I won't show it, but I'll get you guys to look it up later if you want to. It's at ngokevin.github.io /kframe/components, audio analyzer, example Spotify. I think this is being recorded, so you'll be able to look that up anyway later. It's really good to try yourself because you can speak at it, ask it for a song, and then it'll play the song to you, and it'll also visualize the audio waveforms in the background. So yeah, that's me. That's what I've got. What I wanted to ask is that if you guys are out there and you're struggling with this stuff, if you're feeling really overwhelmed right now because you just spent all this time working with WebVR, but after this, you've no idea where you're going to go next, you're freaking out a bit, or you're worried that you're not going to keep up with it, that you're going to be one of those people who leaves it in the drawer, puts it away. One thing to think of, if you are okay with emails, I've got a newsletter that's a weekly newsletter that tries to help people get into emerging technology and stay with emerging technology. So I send out links to all sorts of news articles, things about VR and the happenings in VR, artificial intelligence and robotics, exciting random things to do with both VR and wearables that people may not have heard of. Self-driving cars have been around for a while, as one of the examples here shows. All of that stuff, right? And so if you look on the side of my website, there's a red box. There's also a newsletter page. And I send out links to all this sort of stuff. And you guys also, if you guys have meetups and you want me to share word about them, if you're trying to find more people to come along, even if it's like where it's streamed online and you want to show more people on YouTube, please send me links because I can throw them in the newsletter and tell people that your event's happening so that the world can see that you guys are doing stuff in VR. So wrapping up, 1, don't let this end up in your drawer, in your closet, underneath your desk, at your friend's house. Please keep using your VR headsets that you've got. Keep going to your friend's house if they've got a Vive or an Oculus, and keep developing for this stuff. Don't leave it for later. You can help shape VR. You guys are in the prime position to make a huge impact in VR. You don't realize quite how much of an impact you can make. So please, point 3, help shape VR. Don't give up on it. Realize that you've got that power. You can go out there, share your knowledge, give things a go, see what works and what doesn't work. And finally, even if you don't sign up to the newsletter, even if you're not a big Twitter person, everybody has an email, so you've got no excuse. If you have questions, if you need help with anything, even if I don't have the answer myself, I know plenty of people who I can go and ask to find that answer for you, even if it's a really stupid question. If you think it's really basic and you don't want to ask it in public, email me with questions. Patrick, how do I do this? Patrick, how do I work out this basic thing in A-Frame that I know I was told in the event last week and I've forgotten it already? What was it again? Anything like that, send me emails, because that's what I'm here for. That's why I'm running things like DevDiner. I'm trying to help people. So keep in touch. And yeah, I'm going to open up the webcam section again so you can actually see me and I'm not just a talking face again. Let's tell it to stop screencasting. And yeah, that's me, guys. If you've got questions and there's time, feel free. But that's all I've got.
Yeah, that was really cool session, Patrick, and so many funny things to make us understand different things here. Thanks a lot for your very useful session. We have all your links, and we have already shared your Twitter account and all the other links which you also have here.
Sounds good.
This
Thank
was
you, guys.
yeah, this is really nice to see the awesome work which you have done, and we are also getting more from the work which you have done.
Excellent. That's good. Definitely, guys. Keep making stuff. Do cool things. I mean, all the stuff that I did isn't actually that difficult. So you guys, within like a month or two, even less, you guys will be able to build this stuff. So do it. Don't wait. Stay awake now for the next 24 hours. Keep going. No, get sleep.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Patrick?
Yeah, Patrick, I have one question.
Ask away.
Like, could you please tell which component you use for the co-presence RTC?
I didn't make the co-presence one myself, but it was a WebVR. The link that I've shared has a lot of detail on how it was put together. I don't think it was built with A-Frame specifically. I think it was built just with WebVR and 3.js. If you guys are feeling more confident in your JavaScript abilities, I don't know. Some people are more confident in JavaScript than others. But 3JS and stuff can do a lot of, well, A-Frame is built on 3JS. So everything that 3JS can do, A-Frame's kind of just building on top of it. But for the co-presence stuff, even just if I was going to build it in A-Frame, as an example, guys, would be look into WebSockets. So JavaScript has the concept of WebSockets, where you host a web server somewhere, so a basic Node.js server, and that can be the, I guess, overall watcher of all the messages that are going on. So say simple text messages or mouth moving or anything like that. And that can pass the information to, say, each phone. And so in your web browser, your actual web page itself that you've built with A-Frame also would have some JavaScript that isn't A-Frame based, that is a WebSocket client. So it basically listens, connects to your Node server, and then just says, hey, I'm here, and I'm going to send some messages to you occasionally. And then the Node server just listens and tells it when things are going on, I guess. It's a very crude way of explaining it, but there's that. There's also a lot of that stuff where it's using the microphone and that sort of thing is all JavaScript based as well. So there's all browser-based APIs for getting access to the audio. Oh, hey, you guys suddenly became really bright. That's wonderful. You guys can just get into, say, look into web browser APIs where you can do the web audio API, can do a lot of the streaming of voice. You could even do a video. So there's no reason why you can't throw in a video into A-Frame. It's harder, so it's a wonderful challenge, but it's really possible too. So all that stuff, I guess what I'm trying to get at is A-Frame is good, and it's a great starting ground because it makes all of this really easy for you guys to just get started with. But then you can build things on top of it that uses other JavaScript kind of functionality. And you just throw in, say, the URLs of images, similar to in my example with the castle and images floating around. Those images were just kind of being flat URLs that just went into, say, the property of one of those plain objects that were floating around. So it all kind of works off the basics that you've got.
Yeah, so this was really useful for us. There are almost 25 plus people right here.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear there are tons of people out there trying out WebVR. This is good. You guys are stirring up enthusiasm.
Yeah, and we also have this hangout call live on YouTube, so there are a few people who are watching on YouTube also.
Excellent.
We them as well. Thank you soon in the next event.
Cool. Yeah, no, keep in touch, guys. If you need me to chat even more later on at something else, I'm more than happy to. So stay in touch and make sure if anybody comes to you guys later with questions and you've got no idea what the answer is, feel free to give my email as well. Like, give it to everybody. I don't really mind. So if anybody needs help, whether you're here now, if anybody got tired and they went home, feel free to like give them my email if they're getting really confused. But yeah, and stay in touch.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Patrick. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Great seeing you. Okay.